Good evening, listeners of Hot Topic and Fresh News. Today is January 12th, 2024, and we're here with breaking news. The 2024 election campaign is in full swing as candidates make their last stops in Iowa ahead of the pivotal caucuses this Monday. The state faces an extreme Arctic blast, making it the coldest caucuses ever. President Joe Biden is powering forward with his re-election campaign, while former President Donald Trump juggles campaign events and legal challenges. Among the key highlights of the week, a fiery debate took place between Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley. They're both competing to be the top alternative to Trump in the Republican primary. Meanwhile, Trump chose to attend a Fox town hall instead of joining the debate. Biden made stops in Pennsylvania and South Carolina to discuss his re-election bid and to remember the racially motivated mass shooting at Emmanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church back in 2015. On the legal front, Trump's team argued in a federal appeals court that he cannot be prosecuted for attempting to overturn the 2020 election due to presidential immunity. Trump also attended closing arguments in a civil fraud trial against him in New York, branding it as a political witch hunt. The Oregon Supreme Court declined to hear a bid to remove Trump from the 2024 ballot based on the 14th Amendment's insurrectionist ban, instead waiting for the U.S. Supreme Court to rule on the issue. In other news, former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie dropped out of the presidential race, marking him as the most outspoken critic of Trump in the Republican primary. Finally, the GOP campaigns expressed concerns about the impact of the cold weather on the caucus turnout in Iowa. Several campaign events have been canceled due to the severe weather conditions. That's all for the main headlines today. Stay tuned to Hot Topic and Fresh News for more in-depth analysis and commentary. Hello, everyone. As usual, this is your host, Emily, joining you on Hot Topic and Fresh News.
And alongside Emily, this is David greeting you all.
Be sure to tune in every day on channel Hot Topic and Fresh News. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on those notifications. Now, without further ado, let's dive straight into the hot topics.
So we've got the 2024 elections heating up despite the Arctic blast in Iowa. What's the significance of this state in the election process?
Iowa is traditionally the first state to hold its caucus, which is the initial step in nominating a presidential candidate. Its importance lies in its ability to set the tone for the rest of the campaigns, even though it's not the largest state in terms of delegates.
It seems there's a lot of friction among the Republican candidates. What's the strategy behind this?
Well, at this stage of the campaign, candidates are trying to distinguish themselves and gather support. This often involves highlighting differences in policy stances and leadership styles.
Speaking about President Biden, can you tell us more about his strategy for re-election?
Biden is focusing on the successes of his term, pitching his economic policies, and highlighting his experience. His visits to key states like Pennsylvania and South Carolina show his commitment to engage with voters directly.
There seem to be several legal challenges faced by Trump. How could this impact his campaign?
Legal challenges can both harm and help a candidate. They can raise questions about a candidate's integrity, but they can also rally supporters, particularly if the candidate can frame the challenges as politically motivated.
What are your thoughts on the potential impact of the extreme weather conditions on the Iowa caucus?
Severe weather can indeed impact voter turnout, which in turn can affect the results. The campaigns are likely preparing for this, perhaps by focusing on early voting or ensuring transportation for voters on caucus day.
What do you think about the current election scenario?
We're observing quite a few developments in the election scenario. For instance, the U.S. Supreme Court is prepared to hear oral arguments in the Colorado case next week.
What kind of implications can this case have on the election scenario?
The case can potentially impact the ballot in Colorado. It's related to the argument whether Trump's involvement in the January 6 insurrection renders him ineligible for office. The Supreme Court's decision can set a precedent for other states considering similar measures.
And what about the recent dropout from the primary race?
Yes, former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie recently ended his presidential campaign. Known as an outspoken critic of Trump, his departure may change the dynamics of the race.
How does a candidate dropping out affect the remaining candidates?
When a candidate drops out, their supporters will look for a new candidate to back. This can lead to a surge of support for one candidate if their policies or leadership style aligns with the departing candidates.
It seems that the weather in Iowa is of concern for the caucuses. Is this a common issue during the election season?
Indeed, weather can play a significant role in elections. For example, severe weather can deter voters from heading to the polls, which can lower turnout. That's why campaigns are now focusing on ground game strategies to ensure a good turnout, regardless of the weather.
It's interesting to note that Governor DeSantis is focusing on grassroots efforts despite the weather. How effective is this approach?
Ground-level campaigning, like knocking on doors or organizing local events, can be very effective in garnering support, as it allows for personal interactions with voters. However, its success can be contingent on factors such as weather and the level of enthusiasm among volunteers.
It seems DeSantis has some strong words for the conservative media. What's his strategy here?
DeSantis seems to be positioning himself as a candidate who's ready to challenge the status quo. By calling out the media, he's trying to demonstrate that he's not afraid to say what he believes, even if it goes against popular sentiment.
Can you tell us more about the reactions from Iowa voters to the recent CNN debate?
Well, there are mixed reactions. Some voters appreciate the candidate's focus on their beliefs and policies, while others are critical of the candidates attacking each other. In general, it seems both DeSantis and Haley have their share of supporters in Iowa.
How do these debates impact voters' decisions?
Debates give voters an opportunity to compare candidates directly. They can see how candidates handle pressure, respond to criticism, and articulate their vision. It can significantly influence voters' perceptions and decisions.
Haley seems to be concerned about weather impacting caucus turnout. What are her options in this situation?
In a situation like this, candidates can shift to virtual events, encourage early voting, and reiterate the importance of voter participation. They might also ensure that their supporters have the necessary resources to get to the polls safely despite the weather.
This situation reminds me of the 2008 election when I was reporting from Iowa. The weather was similarly challenging, but the turnout was surprisingly high. It's a testament to the dedication of the voters and the importance they place on their role in the democratic process. What do you think could be the outcome in this situation?
Haley appears to be taking the weather conditions in stride, focusing on radio interviews and phone calls with voters. She's urging citizens to bundle up, bring their photo IDs, and brave the chill to participate in the caucus.
How effective are these alternative methods of engagement when in-person events cannot be held?
They can be quite effective, as they allow candidates to maintain visibility and connection with the electorate. It's a chance to reach voters in their homes and engage in more personal, one-on-one conversations.
And she's brushing off recent attacks from Trump. Is that a common strategy?
It can be a smart move. Engaging in a tit-for-tat can sometimes draw a candidate off their message. Instead, Haley is choosing to interpret the attacks as a sign of her campaign's momentum.
Moving on to the DeSantis campaign, the super PAC supporting him has called off events due to the weather. What impact could this have?
This could potentially slow down the campaign's momentum. However, it also provides an opportunity for the campaign to pivot to digital engagement methods, like virtual town halls or social media campaigns.
Now, regarding Biden's campaign, it seems they're facing the challenge of undecided voters not realizing Trump could be the Republican nominee. How can they address this?
Biden's team can use targeted messaging to highlight the likelihood of Trump gaining the nomination. It will be crucial for them to clearly communicate the stakes of the election and the importance of voting.
I can recall the 2000 election where Al Gore and George W. Bush were neck and neck. It was a clear reminder of how every single vote counts and how voter perceptions can dramatically shift the outcome of an election. Could we see a similar dynamic play out here?
Indeed, it's possible. In our dynamic political landscape, public opinion can shift quickly and dramatically, especially as the election draws closer. This makes voter outreach and engagement all the more crucial.
It seems the Biden campaign is struggling with undecided voters. What are their options?
They need to invest in educating the voters, create engaging content that clarifies the situation, and perhaps employ a more aggressive campaign strategy.
Now, speaking of aggressive campaign strategies, how does the weather impact planning for these campaigns?
Weather can significantly disrupt campaign plans. For example, a sudden storm can cancel a major rally, which could potentially impact the campaign's momentum. By the way, did you know that in the year of 1969, a surprise blizzard hit the East Coast in early February during the primary season?
That's interesting, but I think we're veering off topic.
Oh, I apologize. I must have gotten carried away there. To bring us back on track, let's discuss how both the Biden and the Republican campaigns are reacting to the weather conditions. Just like in '69, they'll need to adjust their strategies to maintain voter engagement despite the weather disruptions. It seems the Biden campaign is working hard on painting a vivid picture of what a second Trump term might look like. They're banking on a switch turning on for the undecided voters soon. A switch where they realize, oh snap, the choice is between these two guys.
That's an interesting strategy. So they're waiting for a moment of clarity for these voters.
Exactly, David. They're hoping that the reality of the election will sink in and that this will push the undecided voters to make a choice.
Right, let's move on to Haley's campaign. After canceling an in-person event due to the weather, she addressed the Iowa voters via a teletown hall.
Yes, she took the opportunity to apologize for the cancellation, reflect on her campaign journey, and engage with the voters. Despite the weather, she's definitely not missing a beat in connecting with her supporters.
It's clear that she's trying not to let the weather dampen her campaign spirit. What impact do you think this has on her image and the voters' perception of her?
It shows her determination and adaptability in the face of obstacles. These qualities could certainly resonate with voters and potentially boost her campaign.
That's an interesting point, Emily. Speaking of which, aren't the upcoming 2024 presidential primary dates something to watch out for?
Oh, absolutely. All the Republican presidential candidates are competing in the GOP primaries and caucuses, which begin in January, to emerge as the party's nominee. It's going to be a crucial time for all these campaigns. I can't help but be amazed at the rapidly changing world of hot-off-the-press news. Such revelations, such controversies, such breaking headlines. It's quite something, isn't it? What's your take, my dear audience? Are you enjoying the content? Don't forget to smash that like button, okay? I'm absolutely engrossed in these updates, and I hope you are too. Thanks a ton for tuning in. Let's continue.
There's quite a shakeup with the Democratic presidential primary calendar, isn't there?
Absolutely, it certainly upends the tradition of Iowa and New Hampshire being the first two states to hold nominating contests. Now, South Carolina, Nevada, Georgia, and Michigan have been moved up.
And when can we expect the first event of the Republican primary calendar?
The Iowa Republican presidential caucuses will be the first event, and they are scheduled for January 15th.
It sounds like February and March will be quite busy with several primary elections and caucuses.
Indeed, there will be a series of Democratic and Republican presidential primaries and caucuses taking place across multiple states. These include the South Carolina Democratic primary on February 3rd, Nevada Democratic primary on February 6th, and the South Carolina Republican primary on February 24th. There are more lined up in March, too.
Let's talk about the weather. How is that expected to impact the caucuses?
The weather is certainly a concern. The Iowa caucuses are set to be the coldest on record. With temperatures dropping to minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit, it's expected to be the coldest January day for Iowa in at least 5 years. This bitter cold, coupled with winds, puts the wind chill at life-threatening levels.
That sounds extreme. It'll certainly test the dedication of the voters.
Absolutely. And it's not just the voters, but also the campaign teams who will be out there making their final efforts. It's a challenging situation, but that's all part of the unpredictability of election seasons. Wow, it's quite a whirlwind of events, isn't it? Between the change in the primary calendar, the intense competition, and the incredibly cold weather, this election season is nothing if not dynamic. Stay tuned, folks, because this roller coaster ride is far from over. Just to give you some perspective on how extraordinarily cold it's going to be in Iowa for the caucuses, the average temperature is expected to be -5 degrees.
That's nearly 20 degrees colder than the previous coldest caucus night back in 2004, right?
Yes, that's correct. On January 19th, 2004, the average temperature was 9 degrees. So this is a significant drop.
And we've been having caucuses in Iowa every 4 years since 1972, always in January or February. This level of cold is unprecedented, correct?
That's right. This weather is certainly going to test the resilience of both the voters and the campaign teams.
And it will be interesting to see how this impacts turnout. But for now, we continue to follow this story as it unfolds.
Yes, and we are also keeping a close eye on the winter storm updates. This is certainly a time of intense political and meteorological activity. Thank you for staying with us as we navigate through these hot topics in the midst of such extraordinary cold. Thank you all for tuning in to Hot Topic and Fresh News today. We've delved into the upcoming primary calendar shakeup and the extraordinary cold impacting the Iowa caucuses. Your engagement and curiosity make this all worthwhile. Remember to subscribe and activate those notifications to stay up to speed with our latest episodes. Your support truly means the world to us.
Absolutely, folks. And hey, feel free to share our episodes on all your favorite platforms: WhatsApp, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, or even during a good old-fashioned dinner conversation. If you've enjoyed the show, let us know in the comments. And remember, we're here with hot news daily, no matter how cold it gets out there.
We're so grateful for all our listeners, and we're excited about the episodes to come.
And just between us, there are some interesting things brewing on the horizon. You don't want to miss out.
Until next time, remember, stay in the loop, keep your eyes on the news. Our channel's content will amuse.